Hi, I'm Scott Allen Miller. This is Sam IT, and today we're going to look into project-based pricing and how that affects your ecosystem with companies like VARs, ITSPs, and MSPs. This video is a little bit more aimed at customers than at us as IT professionals or as service providers, but it is really important for us as IT professionals or service providers who may be customers to understand how this works, because it helps us understand what our customers need, what we need, and how it all plays together. When doing project-based work, it is very common for this to be seen as the best way to engage outsourcers. Basically, the design of a project-based engagement is that the customer will define what they need carefully in a scope. They will throw that over the wall to their service provider, whatever type of service provider that is. The service provider will then go through all the requirements, make necessary changes, provide a contract for the amount it's going to cost to do that work with possible considerations for overruns or unforeseen circumstances, but generally things are going to be carefully scoped, priced, and the contract will determine exactly how the entire situation goes down. This is then given back to the customer, they agree to it, and they pay a flat single rate for an entire project. And that project could be something as simple as rolling out 1,000 new desktops, it could be developing a new application, it could be migrating from on-site email to Office 365, it could be putting in a new PBX and desk phones, it could be just anything. Projects come up in the IT space every day, and so we often see project-based pricing as a way to approach them. The benefits to project-based pricing is that the client can predict how much the whole thing's going to cost with at least a pretty good degree of certainty. It's not 100% certain in all cases, it depends on your contract and your agreement, but basically they know it's going to cost them $10,000 and this is what they're going to get, and they can budget for that or pay up front or whatever. The benefit overall is that they take the service provider's expertise at scoping out the project, and if there's wild miscalculations, that is mostly absorbed by the service provider. In the real world, however, this does not really work out in the benefit of the customer. It should work out in the benefit of the service provider, and here's why. Projects, one, work a lot like insurance or warranties, and as we know, the companies who make insurance and warranties make money. That's why they make these things. That means that on average, you as someone who may purchase a warranty or insurance loses, because for there to be them making money, you're the only person from whom they can make that money. So you are overpaying for the average, and they make a lot of money, so you're probably overpaying for the average by quite a bit. Now, of course, that's for the average, and the reason that we go for warranties or insurance is because we're fearful that we will fall to the wrong side of average and that we will benefit. But because we overpay so much, we have to fall dramatically to the wrong side of average, so we still don't tend to work out very well. And even then, we have to compete with maybe they won't pay out and whatever. Let's not get into that discussion. But when we're dealing with project-based pricing, we're basically leveraging that ecosystem. But in a case where our vendor and our insurer or our warranty provider are all the same company. So they're making money on the project and they're making money on providing that warranty that they're going to be able to do it within a certain amount of time or whatever. To them, there's a lot of advantage to us as a service provider, assuming we're a service provider. Our advantage is that we get a guaranteed pay, and if we work really hard, we can get the project done in shorter time than that, increasing our windfall. Suddenly our margins can get a lot better. The customer doesn't benefit from us screwing up and taking too long or getting the scoping wrong. But what we have to do is we have to build in the price of scoping, and in many times it can take more time to scope a project than to actually do a project. Okay, that's an extreme, but if you're dealing with a small project such as an email migration, it's not hard to believe it's going to take several hours to carefully get a contract and scope down to make sure that no one's taking over advantage of each other in a project that may only last 40 hours. Well, if you're spending 4 hours to scope out for 40 hours, that's 10%. That's a lot of overhead that has to be added onto the cost of that project just to provide the scope. that absorbs almost all of the benefits that that protection would give to the customer. And of course, any scoping cost must go to the customer. It's the only place where that money can come from. So the customer is going to have to start by paying 10% more, plus they're going to have to pay whatever overhead there is for the protection of the project-based pricing. And then they don't benefit if things work out in the other favor. So it pretty much guarantees that the project won't go anywhere near good, and the chances that it will benefit the customer is nearly non-existent. And so the customer, especially if they do this more than once, is basically guaranteed to end up overpaying because they're creating a large amount of additional overhead which doesn't need to exist, both in the scoping and in what we think of as the warranty buffer, and then they have to pay for the project itself. Had they paid for the project directly, it only takes 2 to 3 projects over a long number of years to provide better protection and lower cost to the customer by simply paying by the hour for work to be done, rather than having this complicated scoping project done. Plus, it also, when you're doing project work, it takes away flexibility. So if the customer partway through wants to change things have to be rescoped or more has to be paid, and you go through a lot of very heavyweight overhead processes, which add more cost again and may disrupt the project and lead to a lack of guarantees and so forth. But if you're paying by the hour, the customer is free to make any changes that they want at any time, and it doesn't matter to the service provider because they're being paid for the amount of work that they do, not only by the amount they were able to work into the scope and predict. So the customer gets a lot more flexibility and lower cost 99% of the time by going with straight hours and paying for the work that they want done. It simply works out. Of course, there is always that one customer somewhere in anecdotal evidence who will have always gotten the raw end of the deal and did not work out well by doing this, but you're talking about literally probably less than 1%. The vast majority of companies lose out big time by demanding upfront pricing and scoping. While it's handy to be able to predict your prices, it's not as handy as paying less. And that's the question that you as a customer have to always ask, and many of us play both roles. Sometimes we're a provider and sometimes we're a customer. When we're a customer, how much are we willing to pay simply to be able to predict how much it's going to cost? In most cases, the best thing for our business is paying the least amount, even if we don't know what that is. Paying more, once we know it's going to happen anyway, probably doesn't make sense. And getting a little bit of predictability, while it sounds good, isn't worth as much as people want to think that it is. Thanks for joining me. Remember to like and subscribe, talk about your questions and your experiences with scoping and guaranteed pricing below. How have both parties made out, lost? Where are we confused about where the overhead comes from, how the insurance works, all that? Put that in the comments below. And remember, you can always sponsor us on Patreon, for which I will put the link in the description below. Talkadillo is a cloud-hosted or fully managed on-premises IP PBX platform providing businesses with simple and simply affordable voice communications. Visit Talkadillo.com and learn more about how Talkadillo can change how you view your telephones and help to support Sam IT.